Hey guys, welcome back to Let's Build Something, and we are going to actually be getting into the building today. Well actually let me rephrase that. We're going to be getting into some building, but we're also going to be doing our configurations with our units. So if you've purchased the parts that were listed in the description below, this is where we're going to be starting off with the official, getting into the nitty-gritty with this project. So a couple of things that I recommend getting. They're not core to building the project, but it will help out. One of them is a box cutter. Another thing I don't have on hand right now that does help out as well is a deburring tool. And then also too, if you can pick up a measurement kit, because it helps with getting finer tolerances when building out the project, especially if you're trying to 3D print some stuff to put into yours, or you're doing some cutting and you want to be more exact. These tools will definitely help out with that process. And then other things we will be using, it's optional. It does help out if you have them, but it's not mandatory, is a rotary tool like a Dremel for cutting, and then also to a power drill with a actual drill bit on it to make the circular holes for GX connectors or antennas, just things of that nature. But like I said, it's optional, it's not mandatory, but it does make things a whole lot easier. So let's go ahead and get our components and start with the configurations and making sure that everything is turning online. So we're going to start with the first steps of tonight's process, which is getting our software downloads done already. So you want to go to Dragon OS. It's at simexecutor.com. That's CEMAXCUTER.com. And you'll see there's two options. There is Raspberry Pi, and there's also x86-64 for the full-size architecture. In this case, we're going to be using the Raspberry Pi architecture. If you click on that, it's going to take you to SourceForge for the download. You're going to download it. One thing to note with the SD card, you're going to need a minimum of 32 gigabytes. We have a 64 gigabyte card that we're using. And then also too, you want to go to raspberrypi.org/software. Sorry, my apologies, raspberrypi.com/software. So you're able to get the Raspberry Pi imager. Once you have those downloaded, I know it will take a moment, you're going to pull up the Raspberry Pi imager. You're going to select your device. In this case, we're using a Raspberry Pi 5. We'll select Next. And then once it's under Operating System, scroll all the way down to the bottom to where you see Use Custom. We're going to select Use Custom, and we're going to take our custom Dragon OS image and upload it into the Pi. At this point, we're going to go ahead and unbox this SD card. Note to self for editing, fast forward portion of Grizz struggling. We have the SD card. You will need an adapter if you don't have one. My laptop actually has a built-in SD card slot. So we're gonna go ahead and insert this guy into the SD card slot. Now, we're gonna go use custom format. Hit Next. We are going to select our SD card. Mine is mounted under drive letter D, and we're gonna hit Next, and then we're gonna hit Right. And we're gonna understand that if we do this, we're gonna erase everything on this card, which we agree to reluctantly. And now we wait. Alrighty guys. So once your SD card is done writing and download is complete, you'll get a nice little, hey, we're finished message. You're gonna take your SD card and you're gonna find the SD card port on the Raspberry Pi. We're going to insert that into there, and now we're gonna go and get our power and display cables so we're able to plug this up and make sure everything is operational. So we now have the SD card inserted and the power hooked up to the monitor and Pi, and we're just gonna verify functionality at this point in time. That and do the setup, because it is gonna ask us for setup. And so we're just gonna get all that fun stuff out of the way before we really start doing anything crazy with the project. You want to make sure that everything is working correctly before you go through with mounting and kind of just having it in place to where you want it. So, you know, you don't run into issues when it's mounted in. It makes it a little bit harder. Like right now, it looks like the Pi, I need to shift around the boot option. So what we're gonna do is we are going to hold the shift key. So we're able to stop this real quick. Oop, went through one more time. We're gonna restart it one more time.
Want me to do a new take?
No, just keep it. Mistakes happen. Happy little mistakes, guys. It's just a part of the process, and I am no expert, but you know, certain things I will leave in just so you know, like it's raw. Okay, so there we go. Spacebar for the Raspberry Pi 5. Press and hold the spacebar, and then we're gonna select for option number 1 for the boot mode. So it boots from the SD card. And so now it's running from the SD. Older Pis didn't have this option. It looks like now for the newer Pis it has some sort of internal memory, I'm assuming, that it can just boot from its own. So yeah, now we hit that and we wait for it to boot. If this doesn't work, we might pause for a second and shift to a different power cord, which it looks like it shut off again. So we're gonna pause this recording for a moment. We're gonna shift to a Type-C to Type-C USB cord to get some more power to it, and then we'll pick up from there, guys. After some happy little mistakes, as my mother would say about me, we have power going to the Pi. So It's made a partial miscalculation on power with this dock. This will still work, but these ports can only put out 3 amp. The Pi needs 5, but it will still run. You will need to have this Pi plugged into the 30 watt port. If you want to select a different power distribution supply, you can. You need 5 amps for this to run at full capacity. So we are booted into Dragon OS, and before we go forward with Dragon OS, I just want you guys to know I am going to leave my mistakes on here for 1, not only accountability, but 2, I want you guys to, you know, feel with me at the same time, because there's a lot of YouTube tutorials out there and they cut past major portions and stuff like that, and so we will make mistakes in this process, and that's okay. It's a part of life, and so I will totally be leaving these in here so you know that I'm not perfect, nobody's perfect, and we're all learning in this process. So we have the Pi fully powered on Dragon OS right now. You can see it has a similar graphical user interface as the actual Raspberry Pi OS, but one of the major differences is it has a specific portion on here for ham radio. So it has RTL Angel on here, it has Hacker Radio, it has GNU Radio, it has the whole 9 of what you would need for STRs, and so this is one of those moments that we pivot. Originally we were going to use the Raspberry Pi image and then make a flowchart for GNU Radio. That is still in the picture, but also too for simplicity and just having more resources available if you don't want to go the GNU Radio route. This comes pre-configured with a lot of tools for that, and so we totally hopped on board with using Dragon OS because it's there, it's ready to go, and that is one thing that is, you know, great about having options instead of having to go through the process of, you know, making a flowchart for GNU Radio and potentially messing up on a configuration or not taking into account, you know, what other people may be doing with this. You know, for GNU Radio it would kind of be a one-shoe-fits-all type of deal if I made the flowchart. So we're now on here. So we have Dragon OS pulled up. We're going to pull up SDR Angel real quick, and I am going to walk off camera for one moment to get the cable and the antennas for the Hacker F Pro, and then we are gonna make sure that the radio is actually receiving. Alright guys, it's time to get even more serious now. So, a couple of things to note before we move forward. So, we have the Pi set up, we have the OS running, and we know that the Pi is functioning how it needs to. We went over the power stuff. Next up is hooking up the HackerF Pro. Do not turn on the HackerF Pro without an antenna connected. You can burn out your board that way. That is crucial that you don't do that, and that goes for most radios. I don't believe I know of any that have a failsafe for that, so if you have like a Bofang or the HackerF1 or the Pro and stuff, don't start it. Same thing with the Meshtastic nodes too, just don't start it without an antenna. We have the Type-C cable that powers it hooked up right now. And I'm sorry, Rusty, if you can refresh my memory, I'd said something earlier that was like something that we totally needed to note on here, and I don't know why I'm drawing a brain fart for it.
Oh, we're excluding the broadcast.
Oh, yes. So, as you guys know, for the build list 2, we have the amplifier and the filter. We are not plugging that up just yet. We will plug that up eventually, but I want to make sure that everything is functioning step by step before we add in another point on there, because say the HackerF Pro is not running how it needs to be and I have the amplifier on, it may confuse you further than just knowing we have Pi hooked up, we have monitor, we have HackerF Pro now, so we can reduce troubleshooting symptoms if we come across them. So we have the HackerF Pro on. We are going to pull up, let's see here. As I was saying, I'm only human. Another key thing I really forgot to mention, when you start up your Pi, you should run sudo app upgrade-y so it upgrades the packages to the current run of what it needs. That would also help out a little bit too. Because yeah, I mean, for the most part, this seems like an air-gapped image in a well, it's not completely air-gapped, but the image is, you know, not the newest thing ever, so I recommend running that. We have my telescopic antenna hooked up for this. This is kind of just a, for the most part, general spectrum antenna. It's not like the other ones that we have over here that are more locked into a specific frequency range. You're able to go pull it in and out. Helps with the signal, but right now on GQRX, I have it programmed to 99.9. We're gonna put that on FM. So one fun tidbit, if you ever want to make sure, this goes for like an actual FM radio or just in general, if you want to make sure you're receiving signal, 99.9 is actually a global radio station, so you're able to pick it up in all countries. And so that's usually what I switch to when I'm trying to see if my radio is working with the actual antenna. Because other ones, like local ones, or you know, even 99.1, or depending on where you're at, what stations you have, obviously they can get some static and cut in and out. So if you can't pick up 99.9, you may need to do some adjustments. So we're gonna check that right now. As soon as I get this rolling, we'll hop back in and I will update you guys from there.
You want me to cut?
Yeah, that's fine.
You filming?
Okay. So, right now I'm trying to troubleshoot us picking up the frequency. So, we're on 99.9 right now. I'm not picking up anything, but I am noticing that we are kind of receiving some stuff. It's able to pick up when I'm touching it for the change in frequency with that. I'm not sure if the port might be a little messed up. We could have a dud unit. Probably not. They're usually pretty good about sending it out. But yeah, we're going to continue the troubleshoot. And then, yeah, hopefully I can pick something up. Just so I don't leave you guys on a cliffhanger. But it's a part of the process, guys. This is why we test before we go and insert stuff into the box and like permanently mount it. And, you know, it's just, it's troubleshooting. It's trial and error in a way. Not totally trial and error, but you know, shit happens. Alright guys, no, lighting's a little bit poor right now. So another big thing we need to talk about in terms of signals, and this goes for most of them, is disruptions in the signal. So we have now opened up the garage door and turned off the TV, and we're receiving the signal a lot better. We were probably essentially making a Faraday cage, which we can go over in another video, or you guys can research if you don't know what that is. But RF and like even Wi-Fi and things like that, they're very prone to disruptions with the signal. So you want to stay away from metal, like how we have a bunch of metal around here, and electromagnetic disruptions like the TV or power cords and things like that. That can cause interference in the signal. So we now have this opened up. We're getting a little bit better of a signal, and once I dial it in a little bit more, we'll make one more clip, and I promise it will be the last one for the night.